I want to talk about the judgments of God again, and I want to read a few things that we have received over the years. But my title is Fatted for Slaughter, and I'm basically referring to America, but it's not just America alone. God is going to judge. He is judging the whole world.
It started off as a shake and then really turned into more of a swing.
Large chunks of buildings fell to the streets as people rushed for cover.
The skyscrapers nearby were swaying like trees in the wind.
I did think at one point that I really might die here.
And then round two as the tsunami sirens wail.
You're seeing live footage of a tsunami engulfing the port area.
When the ominous Black Sea attacked this island nation Friday, it left behind a massive trail of destruction that is getting worse by the hour.
A giant tsunami wave crashes into the Fukushima Daiichi power plant, seriously damaging the building's reactors.
The Japanese Prime Minister Naoto Kan said today the disaster is the worst crisis for Japan since World War II.
And he's going to pick up his judgments. They're going to get more severe. They're going to come quicker. Because God has been telling us for quite a few years that He's tired of warning people, and He's going to act now.
Has been spotted heading for your area. Seek shelter in an interior.
This has been the country's worst and deadliest tornado outbreak since the Great Depression.
Governor Deal declared a state of emergency in 16 counties.
You'd think the death toll will go up.
Yes, sir. And we do.
Oh, gosh, that is a monster tornado.
The tornado moved slowly 6 miles through the center of Joplin. The town is now effectively cut in half.
It was just crazy. It was like a jumbo jet was landing on your house.
I love you.
It's just flattened.
I really was not prepared for what I saw when I got down here.
Search and rescue crews sift through the rubble trying to locate missing loved ones, and the death toll moves past 100.
It is a huge monumental flood. We're living historic times at this point. We've almost had a foot this morning, and it will continue to rise and inundate areas of the city.
We're seeing entire trailer parks engulfed with water, people having to grab their belongings and move out.
Now, since this Japan thing happened here, there has been a big fervor over, did God send that judgment over there? Was that a judgment of God, or is that just something that happened? And of course, there is a particular prophet, calls himself a prophet, that he is claiming that's not the judgment of God. Anybody says that is bigoted. It's ridiculous. That God told him 5 years ago that God was going to bless Japan, God was going to bless the Orient, and that can't possibly be God's hand. Well, I don't know if it's God's hand or not, according to him, but I'm telling you it happened anyway, and I can't see that. In terms of that magnitude, one of the largest earthquakes ever recorded, 9/9. It's a huge earthquake, and the tsunami, and then of course you got that whole nuclear leak they got going, contaminating everything. We don't know how severe it will get over a period of time, but that's not a blessing.
Flames raging out of control.
Now, I will not say that this judgment, that I know that's a judgment, will not eventually bring a blessing, because that's what judgments are for. Judgments are for, actually judgments is God's love, and they are for redemptive purposes to bring men in right standing with God through correction. And God has to bring severity to certain individuals, groups of individuals, and nations when He sees fit.
Shelves emptying in the scramble for last-minute supplies and food to last 3 days.
And for people to stand up in the face of God and say, that's not your hand, that's a blessing, is absolutely really stupid. And this same person
This is chaos. I never saw anything like this in my life.
Is going to go on TV and United, the largest Christian television network, and proclaim his prophecy that God told him about God's blessing Japan. Well, let him go on and say on. Everybody knows that place is laying in a heap right now, laying in rubble and ruins.
Injured in multiple pileups involving 24 cars, trucks, and semis across Arizona Tuesday.
This same TBN, you know who we're talking about, Paul Crouch and his whole gang of thugs, thieves, liars, and false prophet and prophetesses, money-grabbing, greedy people that run that outfit, that make millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars off of that, was the same person that had the man about 10 some odd years ago that got on there and said God told him that all evil was going to go out of the earth. How many remembers that? I talked about that openly when the prophet was saying that, and I said he was false, and the first time I ever heard it, I said, this is ridiculous. There's not a scripture in the entire Bible that ever claims all evil is going out of the earth.
There's no doubt in my mind what the people of this community can do. There's no doubt in my mind that Joplin will rebuild.
Said evil would increase in the last days. It didn't say it would all disappear. Well, anyway, they had him on there, and he was on there about a year babbling on about his prophecy that God gave him. And of course, I wrote him a letter, as I usually do, pleading with him not to be so ignorant that he's going to be made a big fool of, and he's going to be ashamed, and he's going to be a sorrow when this does not transpire. But of course, no one would listen. You know, they got him on there and promoted him, and everybody was, oh wow, all evil going out of the earth. Wow, what a blessed place it's going to be. Well, the day came, the day went, and nothing happened.
We're not going to give up. We're going to go home.
You don't hear from the man anymore. You don't hear from this great prophet. I've never seen his name after that. Now, we got the same thing going on, and we've had the same things going on. And you remember also in the 90s, down was in the El Paso area that...
Wet start to 2012 as tropical storms batter Southeast Asia.
Another group of people got on and said a rapture was going to take place at a certain time, a certain day, a certain year. And I wrote those people and told them, you're making a big mistake. You're going to make a fool of yourself. And oh, no, you just don't know what you're talking about. You wait and see. Well, I waited and see. I said, when this does not happen, I will write you and you write me back, okay? Of course, they was going to be raptured to heaven. Well, the day came and gone, no rapture. And I could give you illustration after illustration of these type of things.
Which links Darwin to Alice Springs were washed away after Cyclone Grant caused flash flooding.
Now we have another date setter, as you know, Harold Camping out there going all over the country with his big buses with the big signs painted all over them. The end of the world, or the rapture, May 21st, 2011. And then he says 5 months after that, the end of the world will come. He gives a date for that. I has also dealt with Harold Camping. This is his 4th time. I said, you're going to make a big fool of yourself. And I, again, telling these people, you're going to make a big fool of yourself. That is not going to happen. The other 3 times I was right. I'll be right this time. May the 21st will come and nothing will happen. There is not going to be a pre-tribulation rapture. How long do we have to tell you this?
The coast, including...
I was telling my wife yesterday, because 2 weekends in a row out there where we're working at our prayer booth, they have brought one of those huge buses, and those buses are probably $500,000 buses, and they're all over the country. I said, probably some people believe him, have sold everything they own, bought those big vans, painted those signs on there, and traveling all over the country to be a witness, to get people warned about this coming disaster. And I said, boy, these people are going to be embarrassed when they drive that big fancy bus around on the 22nd of May, 2011. I wouldn't be caught dead in it, because everybody's going to be pointing at that sign and wondered how come you're still in that bus when they're supposed to be flying away in the sky to meet Jesus in the air stuff.
Swept through a mining village in Compostela, and another 8 people died from leptospirosis, a bacterial disease often spread by infected floodwater.
This is the way it's going.
The new year has also brought storms to parts of the United Kingdom, causing widespread damage, with a number of deaths reported. Once again, Scotland bore the brunt with gusts of up to 180 kilometres per hour.
Okay, this is what's going on. It's been going on for a long time. JWs, Jehovah's Witnesses have done this. The Seventh-day Adventists has done this. Numerous People in Protestant and the Catholic Church have done this. They prophesied certain dates, certain times. And I'm not saying that God does not give certain dates or certain times. He has done that.
Farmers in the U.S. state of Texas already...
But if you can't find in the Bible, like the pre-trib rapture, you can't find that in the Bible. That's totally false doctrine to start with. There's not anything connected to that. And of course we had another woman, this is the second time in a row, that came to our booth and says, "Do you own that bus out there?" I said, "That's not our bus." And then she said, "Well, they're making a mistake because I don't, even Jesus don't know when, this is going to take place, or Jesus is coming back, or God's coming back." So how can they say that? Well, we just let them say on because we said, well, we know that. It's not in the Bible, but they think they are smarter than God. And they'll be made a big fool of. Poor people.
Caution. It is vitally important not to make connections. When you see the shots of rubble from Joplin, Missouri, you should not wonder, is this somehow related to the tornado outbreak 3 weeks before it in Tuscaloosa, Alabama? Or the enormous outbreak a couple weeks before that, which together comprised the most active April for tornadoes in U.S. history? No, that doesn't mean anything. It is far better to think of these as isolated, unpredictable, discrete events. It is not advisable to try to connect them in your mind with, say, the fires burning across Texas. Fires that have burned more of America at this point this year than any wildfires have in previous years. Texas and adjoining parts of Oklahoma and New Mexico are drier than they've ever been. The drought is worse than that of the Dust Bowl, but do not wonder if they're somehow connected. If you did wonder, you see, you would also have to wonder about whether this year's record snowfalls and rainfalls across the Midwest, resulting in record flooding along the Mississippi, could somehow be related. And then you might find your thoughts wandering to, global warming, and to the fact that climatologists have been predicting for years that as we flood the atmosphere with carbon, we will also start both drying and flooding the planet, since warm air holds more water vapor than cold air. It's far smarter to repeat to yourself the comforting mantra that no single weather event can ever be directly tied to climate change. There have been tornadoes before, and floods. That's the important thing. Just be careful to make sure you don't let yourself wonder why all of these record-breaking events are happening in such proximity. That is, why there have been unprecedented megafloods in Australia, New Zealand, and Pakistan in the past year. Why it's just now that the Arctic has melted for the first time in thousands of years. No, better to focus on the immediate causalities. Watch the videotape from the store cameras as the shelves are blown over. Look at the news anchor man standing in his waders in the rising river as the water approaches his chest. Because if you asked yourself what it meant that the Amazon has just come through its second 100-year drought in the past 5 years, or that the pine forests across the western part of this continent have been obliterated by a beetle in the past decade, well, you might have to ask yourself other questions, such as harvest from the Russian heat wave, and Queensland's failed harvest from its record flood, and France's and Germany's current drought-related crop failures, and the death of the winter wheat crop in Texas, and the inability of Midwestern farmers to get corn planted in their sodden fields. Surely the record food prices are just freak outliers, not signs of anything systemic.
Uncompromisingly righteous and rigidly just are you, O Lord, when I complain and contend with you. Jeremiah had a problem with complaining and contention as I do sometime, as we all do most of the time. Okay? He says, "Yet let me plead and reason the case with you. Why does the way of the wicked prosper?" Now this has been asked hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. Why do the sinners, the pagans, the fake Christian church, why do they prosper so much? And the people seemingly trying to live right with God are just like poor, underprivileged, struggling, hardly able to make it.
I'm sure that's what the residents of Joplin are telling themselves today.
And why do the prosperous people like the TVN, television network, why are they so filthy rich when everything they talk about is fake and false? Yet they bring in millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. That man that owns that TV station has 6 huge, expensive mansions around the world, all with their own wine cellars included. Now, I'm not going to get on an anti-Paul Crouch and his Cupid doll wife that looks like Barbie doll, aging Barbie doll. with dyed hair and all. I'm not going to get on their personalities, but you know, I've watched that over the years. I don't watch TV, but I know they're there and I know what they're saying and doing. But why do they prosper? When time and time and time again the people they have on their shows prove to be flakes and snakes and liars and thieves and frauds, and yet they still go on and prosper. And the people of God that preach the truth and try to tell the truth, they won't get invited on radio. They won't be invited on TV. They're not even called on the telephone. They're not interviewed. Nothing. They don't prosper at all. Well, this is nothing new.